Okay. We're going to begin by going over the warm-up. By this time, you should have all completed the 3 questions. And if you have your notes with you, or you have been working in class the past few days, you should remember these formulas, okay, that I'm talking about. And you should know the 3 steps for tax and discount. You've been working on those problems for a couple of days now. And if not, they're in your notes. Okay, they should be in your notes. You've written them down. All right. Number 1 says, what are the formulas for percent proportion? There are 2 of them. We have is over of equals percent over 100. This works for the one-liners. And we have part over whole equals percent over 100. And this one works when you're dealing with word problems. Okay, you have to identify which it's the part or the whole. Number 2 says, what is the formula for percent of change? First of all, you know it's a percent of change problem. It's talking about an increase or a decrease. The formula here is change over original equals percent over 100. Okay? And in order to find the change, you have to subtract. Please don't forget that. All right? The last one, what are the 3 steps for tax and discount problems? Okay, tip is also included in that. The first step is convert. Convert your your percent to a decimal. Step 2 is to multiply. Multiply your decimal by the amount. Okay, the amount of the shirt, the total bill, whatever it is. Okay, multiply your decimal by your amount. Step 3 is to add or subtract. Okay, you add if you're dealing with tax and tip. You subtract if you're dealing with discount. Okay. If you have a 2-step tax and discount problem, you have to go through this cycle twice. Once for the first step and again for the second step. Okay? Today we're going to be talking about simple interest. All right? It also deals with percents because interest is dealt with in percents. And that's why it falls into this percent category. If you have not yet gotten out some paper to take notes on, you need to get out something to take notes on. If you don't have a sheet of paper, borrow a sheet of paper from someone else. You need to be writing these things down and working through the examples so you know how to do these things on your own. Okay. The first thing we need to talk about when we're dealing with simple interest is interest itself. Okay? Interest is the amount of money that is paid or earned for the use of money. Okay? If you have a bank account, it earns interest because the bank uses your money. So you make a little bit of money. Okay? If you take out a loan, okay, it has interest, and it means that you have to pay the bank back a little bit more for you using their money. Okay? So interest is the amount of money that is paid or earned for the use of money. You earn interest on your bank account. You pay interest on a loan. Okay? That's kind of how that works. The formula. This is important. Please write this down. The formula for simple interest is I equals PRT. And I'm going to tell you what all of those things mean, but right now you need to write down the formula I equals PRT. And I'd write it big, and I'd maybe write it at the top of your paper or in the middle so you can see it. Right? These things stand for I is the interest. P is the principal, or the amount that you started with. How much you started off with. R is the annual interest rate. Notice the word annual here. Okay? Given as a percent, and it must be turned into a decimal, just like you were doing with sales tax and discount. And T is a length of time, and the time has to be in years. Okay, so we're talking about years here. If it's given in months, you have to divide it by 12. So if it is 6 months, you need to write it down as 6 over 12. If it is 3 months, you need to write it down as 3 over 12. And we will do an example problem that deals with this. So I is interest, P is principal, R is rate, and T is time in years. That's important. The steps for solving a simple interest problem are as follows. Number 1, convert your percent into a decimal. And if you don't know how to do that, percent, like 25% or 0.25. And move your decimal 2 places. Okay. If you don't know how to do that, here it is. Step 2, substitute for the variables. Fill in for the R and the P and the T and the I, depending on what you have. Step 3, solve for the missing value. If you're looking for the interest, simply multiply the P, the R, and the T. If looking for something else, multiply and then divide. You guys know how to solve for a variable if you're missing something in the middle. And we'll do an example of a problem of this bottom kind. All right? You just need to know the basic 3 steps. Convert, substitute, solve. We're going to continue this lesson by looking at some examples. I have 4 examples I would like to go through. Okay? We're going to start off with something easy, and we're going to move to things that get a little more challenging. Example 1 says, find the simple interest earned in a savings account where $136 is deposited for 2 years if the interest rate is 7.5% per year. First of all, we know because this problem deals with simple interest that we will be using the formula I equals P R T. Okay? And the first thing we want to do, like from our steps, is convert. We have this percent. We want to change it into a decimal. We do that by moving, and I'm going to do it up here. We move this decimal 2 places to the left. 1, 2. And I fill in this blank spot with a 0. So this now equals 75 thousandths. Step 1. Step 2 is to fill in all of the things that I know. So I know my interest rate is 7.5. So we have I equals, my principal is $136. My rate, which I have now changed into a decimal, is 75 thousandths. And my time is 2, and it's already in years. Notice how I'm substituting in parentheses. That's practice. And I'm solving for I here. So all I need to do is multiply those 3 things. $136 times 7,500 times 2. And I get an answer of I, which is my interest, equals 20.4. Now that is dealing with money. Interest is money. So I need to make it look like money by adding my 0 to the end, because money has 2 places after the decimal, and my dollar sign. So I found the simple interest. It is $20.40 that will be earned for that savings account. Example 2 says, Rivers has $750 in a savings account that pays 3% simple interest. How much interest will he earn in 4 years? Right? I know I'm dealing with simple interest. Sorry. I know I'm dealing with simple interest. It says so in the problem. Okay? And in a simple interest problem, we use I equals PRT. And we start by converting our percent, 3%, into a decimal. 3% changes into 300ths. Please remember that if the decimal is not in the problem, it's behind the number there. Okay? The second thing we want to do is fill in what we know. Rivers has $750 in his savings account. That's his principal. That's how much money he started off with. And we have our rate, which we've changed into a decimal. And we have our time, which is already in years, 4 years. If it's not in years, we have to change it. This is another simple problem where we just have to multiply 750 times 300 times 4, and we end up with 90. Now, once again, interest is money, so this is $90. And please notice here that we have answered the question. How much interest will he have in 4 years? He'll have $90 of interest. Or he'll have earned $90 in interest. Example number 3 is getting a little more challenging. It says, find the simple interest for a $600 find the simple interest for, shouldn't have it there. For $600 invested at 8.5% for 6 months. We know we're dealing with simple interest, so we're going to use the formula I equals PRT. We start by changing our percent into a decimal. Okay, this becomes 0.085, and then we fill in what we know. Interest equals principal, which is 600. That's how much we're putting in. 0.085 or 85,000, which is our rate, and our time, which is 6 months. Okay, we're dealing with months. We need to change it into years. You do that by putting it over 12. Now you could say 6/12 here. Okay, or you know that is half of the year, which also works. Okay, we could put 0.5. So 600 times 0.085 times 1/2 is going to give interest of 25.5, which is money, so we need to make it look like money. It said find the simple interest, and we did, $25.50. And what made this problem more challenging is that we were dealing with 6 months instead of a whole year. So we took 6 months and we put it over 12 and changed it into a fraction, which is what you see right here. And you do not have to simplify. You could have just multiplied. It would have worked out the same. Our fourth example is getting even more challenging. This time we're going to have to solve for a variable in the middle of our problem. Okay? Let's read it. Suppose Marcus invests $1,800 for 2 years and earns $144 in interest. What was the rate of interest? We're looking for the rate this time. Okay? So we know we're looking for simple interest. We know that because the problem is talking about it earns interest. So we're going to use the formula I equals PRT. And we're going to fill in what we know. I don't see a percent here to convert, so I'm just going to move on down to fill in what I know. It says Marcus invests. Well, his initial investment is $1,800 for 2 years. and earns 144. If he earns this in interest, it goes there. We don't know the rate, but we do know the 2 years. Okay? And what was the rate of his investment? We're looking for R, so we have to solve for R this time, which is different than what we have been doing. First, you're going to multiply these things together and simplify this part of the problem. So you have 144 equal to 3,600 R. And then you want to solve for R. You do that by dividing both sides by 3,600. This cancels out, and you're left with R equals 0.04. Now, it told us in the beginning that rate is a percent. So you need to take this answer and change it into a percent. So it's a 4% interest rate. The question said, what was the rate of interest? 4%. Right. You've seen 4 examples of simple interest problems. Some of them start out very basically, just filling in and multiplying. Okay? They get a little more challenging if you have time that's not in years, if your T is not in years. And then they can be even more challenging. You have to solve for one of the variables in between. I'd like for you now to practice solving some simple interest problems using the formula I equals PRT, which you see here.